Welcome to the U of Digital Live podcast, where we break down major stories in marketing and advertising into easy to understand terms. We discuss interesting opinions, and we bring you, the audience, into the conversation. Enjoy. Welcome to episode 3 of U of Digital Live. Really excited to be here. I'm your host, Shiv. We have our esteemed co-host, Myles.
Hello.
So before we get into any content today, we want to talk about a cool new program that U of Digital is launching. It's called an AI Accelerator program. It's the first time U of Digital is actually launching or running a public live kind of course. Usually we run trainings in private for companies and their employees, but we're doing it out in public for the first time. So I'm super excited about it. Myles has been a driving force behind it. Myles, can you tell us a little bit more? Like what can people expect from the AI Accelerator program?
Yeah, it's kind of a one of its kind AI fundamental workshop in the ads industry because it is tailored to the digital ad and marketing industry. It has the U of Digital ethos baked into it from start to finish, which is, this isn't just a bunch of buzzwords we're going to cover. The trainers teaching the material are actual practitioners, people from the industry. These aren't kind of, paid keynote speakers and motivational speaker type people. So we're really excited about it. I mean, Shiv, you know better than I do. Like, we've just been seeing a tremendous amount of demand and excitement from our clients for AI fundamentals training. And so we're really excited to bring this out to kind of the broader public. This is a big deal in terms of U of Digital's offerings, training offerings to the industry, because by making this into a public model, we're dropping the entry point price wise by like 98% to learn with us. And so we're like super duper excited to roll that out, get more people in the industry trained, and just see how people react. And I'm going to drop the link to it into the chat. But for anybody listening, go to learn.uof.digital. That's learn.uof.digital. And there's a big billboard for the AI Accelerator right there on the homepage, and that'll get you all the details.
And for our podcast listeners, we have a promo code. So you can use promo code podcast, all lowercase, and get 20% off the course. And as Myles said, again, you don't need to sign up your whole company. If you're just an individual, you want to expense it, go ahead, sign up, learn about AI and marketing and advertising. It's a great opportunity to sharpen your skills and become more of an AI forward or AI kind of thought leader within the industry. Now, on to the fun stuff. So, as always, we're going to start with a news roundup. And we have a bunch of really interesting stories to cover. The theme of today's podcast, and I would imagine many of our podcasts in the future, Myles, is AI. And so we'll start with the most fun story that you and I had a good laugh over, which was the acquisition of Johnny Ive's company, which I think is called IO by OpenAI.
I think that's the name. And is it Johnny or Joni? I
think it's Johnny. I think it's Johnny.
All right. We'll say Johnny.
Joni? Okay. Let's go with let me go with Johnny. Johnny Ive. So Johnny Ive is actually a legend, right? Because Johnny Ive is the creative genius behind Apple devices, behind the iPhone, behind the iPad, behind the MacBook Pro. And so he is, kind of like the creative forefather of Silicon Valley, and OpenAI and Sam Altman swoop in and buy his company that is 1 year old and has 55 people for $6.5 billion, which
my understanding is it's all stock. I believe.
Oh, that's fine. I would take $6.5 billion of OpenAI stock.
That doesn't make it any less sort of eye opening, but anyway. $6.5 billion richer on paper.
Yeah, and then they made this just awesome video, just an incredible video, where this is how they announced the acquisition, where Sam Altman walks into walk through SF, walks into a coffee shop. Johnny walks separately. He walks into a coffee shop. They sit down and they start talking about AI and how the world is changing and technology and creativity. And I'm like sitting there watching this. It's really riveting for the first few minutes because I'm like, what's going to happen? Like, what's going to happen? Turns out, the 9 minutes and 21 seconds go by and nothing really happens.
Now, Shiv, I have to ask. So, if you're listening, you can't see, and so myself or Shiv will have to read this. But like, Shiv, did you pause it intentionally on this screen?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. No. Read that. Read the quote.
I'll read the quote. But like the direction of the force vector felt clear, says Sam Altman.
It feels like I didn't actually watch very much of it, Shiv. I watched Sam Altman walking around, my old hometown, downtown San Francisco. That was just me reminiscing about, I miss downtown San Francisco. And then whatever, they started having their coffee and I didn't actually watch the rest of it. But it definitely, this quote, this subtitled quote seems to embody the whole thing to me of like 9.5 minutes of self-indulgent AI broetry with phrases like force vector. Well, I don't even know what that means.
But it felt clear, Myles. The force vector felt clear. So this is, I mean, listen, jokes aside, this is huge. This is a big deal. $6.5 billion is a crazy acquisition price for a company of 55 people that is 1 year old. That, as far as I know, has zero products available in the market. I looked around. I was like, wait, is there a product that they already have that they're no, there's just no there. I couldn't even find a website for the company IO. But what's interesting, obviously, to speculate about is like, what are they building? Like, what is it going to be? What is it? And the idea, like, that's out there in the ether is like, okay, well, it's going to be some kind of like AI first device or tech that's not just, you pulling out your phone, loading up a browser, going to ChatGPT, typing things in. Maybe it'll be something that's more like spatially aware, right? Maybe it'll be sensors installed in your home where you walk in and the AI starts talking to you and it's all conversational. There's all sorts of wild stuff out there, being talked about. But, this is, I mean, I think it's exciting and cool and we'll see what happens. I just wish there was something more to dig into. There's
I mean, if anybody can crack the code on kind of like what the new whatever user interface is, it would be Johnny Ive. Like, he's the guy who revolutionized the world with like the iPod interface, with the glass screen. He basically took the keyboard out of a BlackBerry. And so maybe they'll crack it because yeah, we haven't seen it yet. We had the AI pin. We've had like I have to say it too quietly or else she'll wake up. Alexa devices, that's Amazon Echo. I don't want to wake her up. Uh, none of it's worked. So maybe these guys will crack the code.
Okay, let's keep moving. Next story was Publicis acquired a company called Captivate with an 8 at the end of it, for $150 million. Pretty fascinating acquisition. Obviously, like the holding companies are getting more aggressively into buying tech or just like non-agency type of businesses. Also of note, Publicis bought a company called Influential last summer for $500 million. So this is kind of the second influencer marketing acquisition. I think this is a little bit more geared towards like sports, and things of that nature. But it's just, it's interesting to see Publicis kind of double down, and it's also interesting that it's coming out of Publicis because I think the general sentiment over the last few years has been that Publicis is kind of running circles around the other holdcos in terms of strategy, M&A, execution, new business, et cetera, et cetera. So just interesting to see them double down on influencer marketing. Next story was Charter and Cox, two massive broadband and cable companies in the US, merged in a $34.5 billion merger. Just huge. I think it's not like it's not some crazy out of left field thing. Whenever there is consolidation in kind of a legacy space, like let's say cable, um, it's kind of obvious why it's happening, right? Smash those two businesses together, get the synergies out, create efficiencies, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now we have more of a chance, kind of, to try to take down big tech and or streaming. But it's still kind of like I saw there was somebody wrote something about this where it's like two glaciers are hugging each other. So the two glaciers hug each other, but they both still melt, and everything still melts. So anyways,
That's grim.
yeah, it's a little grim. But you never know. Like we've seen companies be able to pivot before. I just think like Charter and Cox. I don't know. I don't have a ton of optimism around that. Okay. Next story is Chase. I think this one's really interesting. So Chase has stood up their own commerce media network, right? So whatever we want to call it, finance media network, whatever the name is. But basically, they are basically monetizing their ad space and their data. Um, for advertisers, right? And it makes a lot of sense. They have tons and tons of data. They have transaction data, which is really, really valuable. They have a lot of inventory within their app and within their, their banking centers and within their website. And so they have a ton of owned and operated inventory. And so it all makes sense, for them to be a commerce media network. I think what's particularly interesting about a company like Chase and PayPal getting into this space is because they are transaction data, and it's not just transaction that is restricted to their, let's call it like ecosystem. People use, Chase products, credit cards, payment systems, things like that everywhere. They have a big footprint across all sorts of different transactions, right? Retail transactions, travel transactions, you name it. They have their data coming from all of those different pots. And I think that's fascinating, right? Because we think about like retail media has exploded partly because that data that retailers have is the new cookie, right? We like to say that. It helps, with measurement, it helps with targeting, all of those things, but it usually is within a closed ecosystem, right? It's within Amazon's ecosystem or Walmart's ecosystem. But Chase and PayPal and maybe other finance media networks get to kind of say like, our transaction data is the new cookie, but it's everywhere, right? And it's for all types of transactions, not just within our store. So I think that's pretty cool. They said that they drove $12 billion in customer spend last year from their media products, which I thought was an interesting stat.
Wait, is that was that 12 billion? And I, not to hold you to having memorized this bit of news, but was that 12 billion in consumer spend or 12 billion in commerce media ad spend?
No, I think it was the former. So is
Okay.
consumer spend generated from Chase's
Yeah.
commerce media touchpoints.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Um, okay, let's go to the next one. Actually related to that one, I think Meta came out with a story or came out with like a new offering where they were providing transparency into offsite like data that's being applied to Meta inventory and the margin that's being taken by some of those media networks. That's interesting, right? Because I think one thing we don't talk about a lot in our industry is a lot of the inventory that's offsite for a lot of the media networks is just Meta inventory and maybe some other walled gardens.
Yeah.
And the markups are crazy, right?
Yes. If everything is an ad network, then every ad network ends up being an audience extension play. That's just kind of like, and yeah, there was just some tidbit article out there, which apparently this is a policy that's maybe been in place for a while, is that Meta requires retail media networks to provide transparency into the markup that they're putting on top of Meta inventory, which is just found interesting.
Yeah. Um, Interesting indeed. Okay, next story. I like this one a lot too. So Nike is coming back to Amazon. And I think what has it been? 5 years? I want to say it's been, yeah, 5 years. Now that's crazy, right? Because if Nike can't make it work,
Yeah.
nobody can. It's like even Nike needs Amazon's
Yeah.
distribution.
Yeah, I mean, Nike pivoted hard into to consumer, and now they're having to recalibrate back to having retail distribution partners. I mean, I have a personal, I'm personally excited that Nike's back on Amazon. I mean, as a Portland, Oregon resident, of course, I have to be a big fan of Nike. But like, I used to work at Zappos in like 2000. 2004, very, very early. I was doing customer service at Zappos, and they didn't carry Nike. And I had this like fat employee discount. So I had to buy nothing but Adidas shoes, which is fine. But this is the only time in my life where I've ever bought Adidas. And then a couple of years later, Zappos started offering Nikes, and that was really exciting to me. And then they took them away again, and that was bad. And now they're back. So I'm excited.
Congrats. Now you can buy. Now you
Now
can
it's
say
it's on Zappos. Yeah.
anywhere you want, Miles. Okay, last story. This is a fun one. HBO Max is once again going to be HBO Max. They tried to just be Max for a little while, and they're like, you know what? The HBO brand is actually extremely valuable, so maybe we should continue to use the HBO brand. So, classic.
Genius level pivot there.
Okay, let's get to our top story of the week, which is all of the conferences, put on, or like whatever you want to call them, the events that the big tech companies put on, and really the two big ones were out of Google this week. So Google had two big events. One was called Google I/O, and that's their conference, or their, again, I don't, what do we call these things? Do we call them conferences or events, Miles? Event?
Summits? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. They had Google I/O, and Google I/O is more about the consumer-facing products that Google is putting out. And so, obviously, the theme of the event was all about AI, and all about how they're infusing AI into all of their consumer-facing products. So, just a quick few highlights from the event that they launched or released or announced. One was they had been working on this project called Project Astra, which was kind of like a full blown AI assistant, like kind of turning your phone into a full blown AI assistant that kind of will like talk to you and do things for you and make phone calls on your behalf. And so they are now releasing this more broadly to everybody that uses Google on their phone, and they're renaming it Gemini Live. And so they put out a little video, with some guy that was like changing a wheel on his bike, and he changed the wheel on his bike. And while he was doing it, he was like, "Okay, now tell me, like, where do I find this screwdriver? Hey, can you call the local hardware shop and see if they have any of these things available in stock?" And so that was the Gemini Live demo, which I thought was cool. Okay, next thing they announced was um let's see. Next thing they announced was their AI subscriptions. So just like Claude and ChatGPT, there are subscription products for Gemini. They used to, I think, only have one, I want to say. Regardless, they now have two. They have two kind of tiers of Gemini subscriptions. So they have AI Pro, which is $20 a month, which is kind of basic capabilities, capped storage, things like that. But then they have they have AI Pro and AI Ultra, which is $250 a month, 10x the price point, to 12x the price point, which has more storage. Also, it includes a subscription to YouTube Premium within AI Pro, which is
I was wondering.
nice packaging. Google's well packaged. So that's just another consumer facing thing to note. And then they announced some new glasses, some like virtual reality, augmented reality goggle thing, new glasses that look more normal but are still.
And right now, Shiv.
No, you're not. Those are not. No, you're not. Um, I'm not buying that. Okay, and then the last thing they introduced, which is relevant for ad world, is AI mode in search. And so, we've had AI overviews for a year-ish, I think now. I think they announced it actually at the last I/O, I want to say. But AI mode is actually natively integrated into just Google search. So if you go now to Google search and you start typing something, you can go into AI mode, which is a little bit more like for deeper queries and conversation, beyond just like a basic query that would require an AI overview, right? So yeah, Miles, yeah, you're sharing your screen. Let's do a quick demo for everybody.
Yeah, earlier today I wanted to figure out like what AI mode in search was. I think what you're supposed to see is like another little button maybe underneath the search bar so that when you type in your search query, you can type it in as an AI mode search query. What I figured out is you have to go to Google's search lab. So labs.google.com/search. This is not available to me under my U of Digital Google account. I don't know if you have it, Shiv, but it looks like it's available on my personal account. So like live on this podcast, I'm going to turn it on and see what happens. So I'm going to click this blue turn on button and see what I get. All right. So now I get, yeah, whatever. I don't want the email. Okay. Try AI mode. What happens? Ah, all right. So I have like AI mode search now. It says meet AI mode, ask detailed questions for better responses. Let's see. My kids need summer programs in Portland, Oregon. They are 5 years old. All right. I'm just going to see what it says. My kids need summer programs in Portland, Oregon. They are 5 years old. All right. I get like a list of general. So basically, I'm getting like sort of a super powered AI overview response here. I've got some like sites on the right hand rail that I can go visit. Doesn't look like the typical blue links. It's kind of more like reference links. So anyway, I don't know. Having used this for literally the very first time, I was wondering what this was going to be. It looks like AI overview, but on steroids. But I'm also kind of wondering what makes this different from like Chat GPT.
Yeah, I don't think it's too different. I just wonder, like, a lot of this stuff for these companies right now is repackaging, I
Yeah.
think, existing models into, like, workflows, trying to get it, like, distribute trying to repackage it and distribute it more, right? And, like, insert it in front of people's faces more. Yeah, because this doesn't seem all that different or compelling to me versus some of the tools that already exist. I do think this little bar on the right hand here
Yeah.
is interesting because that's obviously ripe for advertising. And AI overviews, just so everybody knows, already have ads in them. So if you're like searching for a specific type of product, like it will give you organic responses, but then it'll say also, try this or try that. So they're obviously moving towards monetizing through ads.
Yeah, and one small detail I've gleaned from whatever chatter online is that they Google doesn't send any refer information to these sites if you click these links. So these sites are then blind to how you got there. So they're not getting any information that you came there from an AI search, which makes it more difficult for site owners, brands, publishers to optimize their content for AI. I'm sure Google will kind of work on finding the right balance there. But for right now, this is kind of breaking some SEO stuff.
Interesting. Um, okay, let's shift gears to the other big Google conference from this past week, which was Google Marketing Live. This obviously is more focused on marketing and advertising. So they made a bunch of announcements in Google Marketing Live. Uh, you know, updates to Gemini, updates to their ad products with Gemini kind of infused in, updates to Performance Max, shopping ads, things like that. So let's just do a quick rundown. First of all, the AI overviews ads, the ones I just referenced, are expanding. I think they used to only be on mobile. Now they're going to be on desktop. They're going to be in some other region. So they're expanding that product. Makes a lot of sense. Um, they are introducing their video AI model, which is called Veo or Veo, VEO, into Google Ads for creating video creative, turnkey, which obvious makes a ton of sense. Pretty awesome. I actually saw some of the Veo outputs and they looked pretty impressive. So that's cool. They launched a thing called Smart Bidding Exploration, which uses AI to tap into kind of like high performing search queries that people should be bidding on, but maybe did not bid on. So basically, like recommendations on other types of keywords that people should be bidding on using AI, which makes a lot of sense. They introduced some stuff in Google Analytics and incrementality testing, just measurement more generally speaking. And then they introduced something called Marketing Advisor, which is kind of like an AI sidekick. And it's in Chrome, so it lives in Chrome, and you kinda use it as, like, an advisor or, like, an AI-powered assistant to help kind of like manage your campaigns, uncover growth opportunities. I didn't really like dig too much into how it works. I don't even know if there's like a demo out there, but I don't know. Sounds intuitive. Sounds like it could be really useful. Obviously, it's more of an agent than it is, just traditional AI or LLM. So, those were kind of the key things announced at Google Marketing Live. So let's get into some of the opinions about some of the stuff that's being released. I think, obviously, AI is being injected everywhere, right? So, if you think about all the parts of the marketing life cycle, they're injecting it in planning tools, right? Like the bidding thing, on new keywords to go out and find. They're injecting it into creative generation, right? We talked about VEO and video generation. They're injecting it into creating new ad formats, right? So I think they're using AI to create new ad formats in different places like shoppable ads and things like that. They're using it for analytics and measurement, right? So they're just kind of using it across the board. Obviously, it has so many different use cases to make things easier across the entire campaign lifecycle. So makes a lot of sense. Um, it's also interesting that like some of these tools don't feel just as simple as let's infuse AI into the existing thing. Like obviously that is happening, but there's also some situations where it's like, no, here's a entirely new paradigm, using AI as kind of a foundation or a starting point, right? And I think more and more that's where we're gonna go. Is it's not gonna be like, hey, here's an AI widget in Google Ads or like in YouTube or something like that. It's like, no, here's a new entire way to like buy or optimize or measure or create creative, right? Um, let's see. Yeah, so AI is no longer the feature, it's an interface. Um, and those are the key things I had. The last thing I'll say in terms of opinion is I know it's really early, but going all the way full circle moment, going back to OpenAI acquiring IO, the ads angle on that whole thing, once we even know what the freaking device will be, is just going to be so fascinating, right? And it's going to be from like AI as a first principles type of thing. And it's going to reimagine advertising, right, as we know it. So, anyways, Miles, do you have any thoughts or opinions?
Well, I think you touched on something interesting when you made the distinction between kind of infusing AI as kind of a bolt-on to an existing product versus imagining some like whole new paradigm. Because they launched some agentic features for or are launching some agentic features for Google Ads and Google Analytics. So basically, the product, Google Ads or Google Analytics, stays the same. Those aren't static products. Google is constantly innovating them. But now instead of using the product directly, you have a chat agent that you can chat with that basically uses the product on your behalf, which I think is probably good. Those are very complex products that like, and then, Google has not gotten a lot of great press with their latest Google Analytics rollout. So it's like maybe this helps them kind of like smooth some of the bumps. But that's a case where you're sort of replacing these kind of NASA command center console type of controls with like, all right, that's very hard to use and very difficult. Why don't you just check with them that will then use the tool on your behalf? But then there are these other kind of more paradigm shifting ideas where Shiv, you mentioned it, they're launching some kind of marketing assistant agent that lives inside Chrome, and it hasn't launched yet, so I think they're still building it. But there's a little demo GIF or something on the blog page for it that showed like a small business owner talking about their company like ad performance, but in the context of their website, which means they don't have to context switch of like, well, I'm going to leave my website and go into AdWords and do the AdWords thing there. Then I'm going to go to Google Analytics. I'm going to do the analytics thing there. It's like, no, I'm in my business. My headspace is in my business. Let's talk about ad performance and analytics performance while I'm looking at my own website. And I find that to be a much more intuitive way to go about thinking about marketing and rolling out new tactics and troubleshooting things. It's like, why have to switch between all these tools? So that seems to me a little bit more of a shift in the actual user interface rather than just kind of bolting on AI chat onto an existing tool.
100%. You know what I think is also interesting about, just Google uh, in this entire space is, I think Google has gotten a little bit of a reputation of being like slow moving. They're not always the innovators leading the way. I think they've been pretty innovative around AI. Like,
Yeah.
they have jumped on it, they may not have been first to market, but, like, Gemini's been doing well and growing. Them, like, pushing all of this, into their tools, but then also creating, again, like, paradigm shifting, with, like, AI first products. They feel like they're kinda leading the way in marketing and advertising from an AI perspective, and that's pretty cool, right? For a company the size of Google to be moving this quickly. I think that's impressive. Quick, Google gets a lot of shit. So a little give them a little nod of the cap, for once. Okay, we want to hear from the audience. So let's open it up. Does anybody want to opine on, anything we've heard in terms of product announcements out of Google or even just the OpenAI IO thing? We'd love to hear from all of you. Chris, go ahead.
Shiv and Myles, first time listener, long time fan, great podcast. Yeah, I think the news around OpenAI and IO is truly exciting. But I think the key takeaway with this merger is hardware and design. I think there's been a yearning and a desire for us to get closer to technology. And if you think about it, the way we use AI today is through like a terminal, like a computer, a laptop, phone. But if you think about it, the way to utilize AI is not limited to just devices, but it's sound, sight, and right. So Shiv, I know we talked about this earlier, but it's the concept of sensors, right? And it's the resurgence of IoT, smart homes, right? And just reimagine walking into your house and having sensors, you know, hard coded in your hallways and your rooms. Obviously, privacy by design, but learning from your behavior, learning from, you might want to be planning a trip to Cancun in 6 months, but AI will learn about your personalities, your behaviors, and it sounds creepy, obviously. And that's one thing that we need to address is the privacy concerns. But I think the directionally is where we're going is our houses are going to be recreated as your domain. It might be firewalled, but it will learn about your behaviors, and AI will be your essentially as a personal assistant using sensors and
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I think you're probably right to a certain extent. Obviously, like, a lot remains to be seen of how this manifests itself. My brain immediately goes towards ads and marketing. And I think, like, it's just so fascinating to think about a future in which um the influence, like the upper funnel marketing aspect of that type of product could be so powerful in terms of, like, how it influences you to think differently or buy things, versus like, "Oh, I saw an ad on TV and now I wanna, like, go buy Doritos." It could be so much more subtle and so much more, I mean, it could also be extremely risky and scary, right? But, yeah, I think that's fascinating. Miles, any thoughts?
Uh, it's fascinating. I mean, it's just very, very difficult. No one can predict like where it's going to go. I'm thinking right now that like if you had, an AI companion, instead of like, for instance, waiting for ads to influence you to desire a certain lifestyle, and you have to like acquire the things that go with that lifestyle. You literally could like tell your companion, "Hey, I want to lead this kind of a lifestyle." And it just is like, "Okay, I'm going to start shaping your reality. I'm going to push events and activities in front of you. I'm going to put products in front of you. I'm going to like talk to you about certain topics, and we're going to order certain books that you can read and certain music that you can listen to, and we're just going to make this your lifestyle, sir or madam." And then that comes along with a bunch of products, services, brands, and you don't need to put that together for yourself anymore, which makes it sound like we're all doing so much work as consumers. Or we're kind of like we have to go out and find this stuff. for ourselves, where there's a future where it may simply be kind of, manifested into existence around us.
100%. Okay. Anybody else in the audience want to share any thoughts or opinions?
Did anybody know anything else about what was announced at Google I/O or GML? Shiv and I did our best to kind of research this, but of course we were not there, uh, and so we weren't sitting there drinking the Google Kool-Aid for however many straight hours it was.
Kool-Aid? Oh man, you're sipping.
Yeah, don't make me sparkly water all over my keyboard.
Let's get into the last section. Just like, what's the so what around all this? Any like big kind of takeaways or nuggets, especially for buyers and marketers? Like, how should they be thinking about how AI is taking over our world?
Uh, I mean, I don't say this in an alarmist way because I think the industry will evolve into new specializations, but is a lot of, the cottage industry of Google AdWords and search specialists and Google Analytics specialists that Google is aggressively replacing that stuff with AI. And like I was thinking, I don't have you ever maybe you signed up for Google Ads in the past and you get those annoying emails from the Google Ads like specialist reps of like, "Hey, book your consultation with me." And you never do because it's some faceless person. Google's replacing all of that. And I'm not talking about like those, yes, those jobs will go away. I'm sure they'll get replaced in some form or fashion, but like that whole aspect of this industry is changing. There is a lot of human handholding at that level of like, let me fine tune this tool for you, human to human. That's now just like Google's like, no, we built a chat window that does it for you.
Totally. Um, yeah, and I think, Chris mentioned in the chat, how will AI disrupt the ad stack? Is that's going to be fascinating, right? Like, will it actually collapse a lot of the ad stack? Like, do we need a stack of technology kind of one on top of the other? Is the ad exchange model dead? I think that's a fascinating question to ask as well. Is RTB as we know it going to die? Real time bidding and auction based buying, like, or I don't know. There's all sorts of different paradigm shifts, right? So, I think at the end of the day, the first step, we're gonna have a full circle here again, Myles. The end of the day, the most important thing is to start learning, right, about this stuff now. So sign up for the AI Accelerator program. Use promo code podcast, all lowercase. And this has been a great podcast. So thank you, audience. Thank you, Myles, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks.